Did you hear that? That's the sound of Audi fans smashing their keyboards going, "They're not the same car, they're completely different. How dare you And look, this isn't anything to be embarrassed about. Sometimes not rising to the occasion is just one of those things that happens in life.
I must admit, I really do like these, and I'd probably even consider having one as my daily driver, but remember, I'm a mechanic.
And I'm always just completely blown away how a car can be so incredibly civilized in 1 minute, and then it's seemingly attempting to rip your face off the next. Okay, you've been asking us to feature one of these things for the longest time, and yeah, we totally get it, because in theory, this is a hell of a package. Powerful 2-litre turbocharged engine, copious amounts of all-wheel drive grip, and all the attributes of a serious performance car, yet wrapped in an understated exterior and boasting quite the premium interior, and the whole package just exudes the right amount of European image with just the right dose of intent. However, it is an Audi, and a used one at that, and as plenty of our other videos have proven, sometimes used Audis can be, how do I put this, massively underwhelming when it comes to reliability and even build quality. So is a used S3 guilty of those things? Well, to find that out, we really do need to explain what can go wrong with these, starting with the exterior, and typical for Volkswagen and Audis, let's talk about sunroofs. Now, we've said this before on the channel, but it does seem that Audi took the job of engineering the sunroofs and gave that to the work experience kid, because some of the issues these can be guilty of are they're a nightmare. First of all, you've got to make sure that all the drainage channels are kept clear all of the time, because the minute they can build up with any debris, water can build up, then it finds its way into the interior, and that can result in a bunch of electrical issues. Just make sure they're cleared regularly. Next up, the actual cassette that the whole sunroof mechanism sits in the corners, the plastic can be guilty of sort of fracturing slightly. They're like little hairline cracks, but that also means water can leak inside. Now, to fix these little cracks, there's a few potential options here. You could just use some silicone sealant to kind of glue it together, but that's a bit of a band-aid solution. You could try to replace just the plastic parts. However, that's apparently a massive faff to do, and being Audi parts, it's going to be a bloody expensive one at that. Or you could just get the entire thing replaced. Or the other option is you hope to find a car like this where it has no sunroof issues in the first place. But easily the biggest complaint we came across with these sunroofs is just how rattly they can get. But before you go running off to your Audi dealership to get ripped off to actually fix it, jump on the owners groups and the forums, because there are plenty of tutorials showing you how to fix this yourself, and it is a really, really easy fix. Check out the tutorials. Just on the topic of Audi dealerships trying to rip people off, let's talk about the DRLs and the headlights. Now, the problem here is that the DRLs can flicker or fade or even just turn off completely. And the major issue with this is it's generally the little module that lights up the LEDs to light up the DRL strip. Now, sit down for this next bit. Have you guessed how much some owners have been quoted for replacement OEM headlights? In excess of $10,000. Yes, it's for the pair, and yes, that includes calibration and fitting and all that sort of stuff. So plenty of owners have gone, yeah, no, that's ridiculous, not paying that. And they've gone to buy used headlights or reconditioned headlights. But these can range anywhere from $900 to $3,000 per headlight. But even then, you're not really sure of the condition or if there's any kind of warranty or fitment guarantee or anything like that. But look, there is potentially good news here, as long as you're someone that loves a more challenging DIY project. You can fix these for around about $400. Again, owners groups and forums, there's plenty of tutorials on there. It does require some talent, but it's going to save you a heap of cash. Now, the hot tip here, and I literally mean hot tip because you actually have to heat up the headlight to do it, is to check out a YouTube channel called ReDriven. He has a fantastic tutorial to take you through step by step on how to fix this. Check it out, the link's down below. Also, on the topic of electrical issues, just go over everything powered by electricity and make sure it actually does work. Chances are it will. Most owners, like the owner of this car, have never had a problem, but check the windows, make sure they work properly, and the rear windscreen wiper, make sure it works correctly. It should. Chances are it will, but just check. And in terms of other exterior issues, well, no, that's actually about it. And that really surprised us, because compared to a lot of other Euro cars of this kind of age and style of car that can have a bunch of problems, these generally don't. But if you are in the market for an S3, it's really important to work out which one is going to suit you best. For example, will it be a 3-door hatch or a 5-door sportback like this one, or a sedan or a convertible? And next up, will it be a pre or post update S3? Now, the post update included all the usual subtle cosmetic changes, updates to the tech and equipment, and revised calibrations to the mechanicals, but more on this when we get inside. Hot tip too, if you're trying to identify between a pre and post facelift model, pre-facelift, they have this sort of smoother bottom edge. On the post update, it's got a bit of an aggressive kink. But choosing which engine is going to suit you best is an absolute breeze because they are all a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged power plant. Transmission-wise, but pre-update 6-speed DSG, post-update 7-speed. However, 6-speed manual examples are also out there for those that, let's say, prioritise driving engagement over acceleration times and convenience. But no matter which transmission you're looking at, power is sent to all 4 wheels. Sort of. Now, this is one of the, let's say, controversial aspects of the S3. These don't feature, say, a traditional quattro all-wheel drive system. It's a Haldex unit, and that means it's basically a front-wheel drive car until the computers sense that the front wheels have lost traction, and then the rear wheels join the party. The problem with this is that some owners have complained if you really up the thing, the front wheels can lose traction for maybe a little bit too long, but we'll let Jim sort of decipher all this when we get into the mechanical issues later in the video. Now, what is a used S3 going to cost you at the moment? Well, currently on the Aussie market, pricing kicks off from as little as $15,000. That is so much car for the money. In saying that, a $15,000 S3 is going to be in bloody interesting condition. At the other end of the spectrum, prices currently top out around about 60,000 bucks. However, for what these are costing on the used market, there's a host of other cars that tick all of these boxes as well. If we're talking all-wheel drive and turbo-powered smallish cars, and sticking with the premium Euro rivals, you've got the AMG A45 and CLA 45, and the BMW M135i and M235i, both in X-Drive form. Or if you're after something a little bit more, let's say, rally-focused, you've got the Ford Focus RS, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 8, 9 or 10, the Subaru WRX or WRX STI, and of course, the Toyota Corolla GR. But arguably the S3's most direct competitor comes from the same parent company. It's the Volkswagen Golf R. But you know what's interesting? When brand new, these were asking about $15,000 more than an equivalent Golf R. But now on the used market, they ask pretty much the same price, which kind of makes sense because they're pretty much the same car. Did you hear that? That's the sound of Audi fans smashing their keyboards going, "They're not the same car, they're completely different. How dare you, you dickhead." Seriously though, they share the same platform, near identical engines and running gear, incredibly similar electronics, and a host of other components can be swapped between the models. The only major difference is the way the suspension has been calibrated and the way they look. And in terms of looks, I hate that we didn't receive the 3-door hatch here in Australia. That thing with a manual gearbox, oh yes, please. But in 5-door sportback form like this, and a warning that Audi fans are gonna hate me saying this, I think the Volkswagen Golf R in 5-door hatchback form is a more cohesive design. I know, sorry. This is not an ugly car at all, and it's quite handsome and it ticks all the Euro vibes that you might want, but for me it just, something about the design doesn't absolutely grab me. And the same can be said for the sedan and the convertible. And that might be because in my mind, an S3 just has to be a hatchback because that's how they were from the start. The convertible and the sedan, they feel like intruders. However, in saying all of that, when these are wearing a sexy set of aftermarket wheels and just lowered just the right amount, it can certainly accentuate the positive attributes of the exterior design. Interestingly too, if you do that, it could actually save you some money. See, plenty of S3s feature Audi's MagRide suspension. It's basically like an active suspension system. It can be fantastic, sometimes it won't be. We'll elaborate on that when we actually drive this. But unfortunately, if that MagRide fails or has an issue, some owners have been quoted in excess of $2,000 per corner to sort the issue. And unfortunately, the same can be said for the brakes. These are renowned for being really hard on their front rotors and pads. But the OEM replacements, they can ask insane numbers. And the same can be said for just maintenance and servicing as well. In fact, plenty of owners that we spoke to highly recommended avoiding your Audi dealership because what they charge for labor can be just exorbitant. And the same can be said for just general parts and components as well. Look, the hot tip here from the owners is just do your homework when it comes to aftermarket parts, because quite often these parts can last longer than the OEM stuff, they can perform better, and they'll often cost less. And we highly recommend checking out our mates at Automotive Superstore. They carry over 400,000 parts from over 500 suppliers. Everything comes with a fitment guarantee and full manufacturer's warranty. Check them out, the link's below, they're bloody legends. Now inside, no surprise for an Audi, it is utterly wonderful to live with in here. Design-wise, spot on. All the touch points, especially whatever this texture is, just feels so good, but honestly, everything you touch just feels quality. Even the ergonomics, spot on, and heaps of adjustability to the seat. I found it so easy to get into my perfect driving position. Top marks from Audi in terms of the interior, or at least it would be if everything in here worked properly all the time, because according to some owners, sometimes it doesn't. First of all, the MMI infotainment systems, specifically the screen rising up out of the dash smoothly. Unfortunately, plenty of owners have had, let's say, problems with getting it up. And look, this isn't anything to be embarrassed about. Sometimes not rising to the occasion is just one of those things that happens in life, and there are plenty of solutions out there. But that's not it for the MMI systems. Loads of owners have complained that the interface just feels a bit old and laggy and can sometimes kind of glitch out. And even in the post-update cars that have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, apparently the phone connectivity can just drop out randomly. And then on the pre-update models like this, some owners have had issues with the Bluetooth just dropping out, and then trying to repair your phone with Bluetooth can be an absolute nightmare. And even the sound quality, both in terms of music being sent to the system and your voice over a Bluetooth phone call, the quality can be just terrible. Actually, just on sound quality, plenty of owners complain that the standard sound systems in these, they're not going to win any, let's say, sound quality awards. However, the Bang & Olufsen sound systems, the optional ones and the ones in the higher spec models, they sound incredible. They're some of the best sound systems in this category of car. Although in saying that, depending on how enthusiastic some owners have been with their volume knob, sometimes those speakers have doofed their last doof. But the advice from the owners here, if you're not happy with the sound quality or the infotainment system in general, there are loads of aftermarket options to fix this up. Automotive Superstore is going to be your friend. Now to the electronic gremlins in here. But you know what? It's actually pretty good news. The problems that we came across, we wouldn't call them common as such. There are a handful of reports of the post-update models, virtual cockpit kind of getting a little bit glitchy and flickering, or the power windows or the power seat controls can sort of act erratically, or the vent actuators in the air conditioning, they can fail. And pray to God this doesn't happen, because to fix this requires the entire dashboard to come out of the car, and that is massively expensive. In saying that though, it's a really rare problem. Chances are you're not going to run into it. Look, just to be on the safe side, before you buy one, try every single function. Try the air conditioning on every setting. Try all the infotainment stuff. Even try the automatic systems like the dusk sensing headlights and rain sensing wipers. Make sure it all works. Also on the wipers, plenty of owners complain that the OEM wiper blades, as they age, they just become terrible. They shudder and they do a crap job at wiping water away. But again, hot tip, don't buy the OEM replacements. They're way too expensive. And some of the aftermarket ones are just terrible. They don't last. Instead, hit the Wiper Tech link below to get 15% off and free express shipping on the only wiper blades we use. They're brilliant on these. They're brilliant on any car, and they're also easy to order and easy to fit. Check them out. Links below. Actually, don't do any of that Wiper Tech stuff if you're going to do what Toby has done with his S3 and lend us your car to feature, because if that's the case, we're just going to give you a set for free as a thank you present. And to volunteer your car, email me via the link below or shoot us a message on the socials. Now, full transparency on Toby and this car. Toby is one of my very best mates in the world, and I have quite the relationship with this car. Between you and I bloody love this car. And we might have some news on this car, but that's for later in the video. Now, interior resilience is an interesting one here, because most owners have complimented the car, saying it can handle a bit of abuse. However, if you don't care for the leather, especially in the hot Aussie climate, the leather can get a bit hard and even a bit glossy and gross. Also, you know how I mentioned before, it feels of really high quality in here? Chances are it will. In saying that, some owners have had some issues with rattles forming in the dashboard and in the pillars, and as I said before, in the sunroof. So again, if you're going to test drive one, just drive over some horrible roads and listen for any rattles in here. However, in saying all of that, again, it's like the electronics. We wouldn't call these complaints common at all. It mainly seems to be really high kilometer cars that just haven't been cared for. Now, as far as actually living with this interior, actually using it is really enjoyable. Everything feels premium. The way these air conditioning vents feel, all the buttons feel nice. Everything you touch, again, feels really, really good. Practicality's okay. You've got a pretty decent sized glove box there. You've got two cup holders here with the little finger things to hold your small pretentious coffee. For me, it'd be an oat piccolo. Also on the cup holders, a few owners complain that they're in a weird spot. What are you talking about? That seems like a totally logical spot for a cup holder. Stop being so sensitive. Little storage spot up here. That's just going to collect dust. Armrest here. Storage under there. Also, this slides back and forth. Door bins are an okay size, but they're scratchy plastics down there, so things probably are going to rattle around. No storage there. Nowhere for sunglasses there. There is a little hidey hole under the seats, or under the driver's seat at least. I think in some of the more recent models, there's also storage under the passenger seat. There's no, oh, there is a little net down there in case you want to catch a goldfish and need to store it somewhere. That's about it for practicality. Not too bad. Now, with the S3 being the near flagship model of the A3 range, obviously the RS3 tops it, these things come incredibly well equipped. Ideally, try to find a post-update model because they come with even more bells and whistles. But if you're in the market, try to find one fitted with one of the enhancement packs, especially the assistance package if safety is a high priority. Also, I know this generation of MMI cops a bit of flack in terms of feeling a bit old. I completely disagree. This is actually one of my favorite iterations of the MMI system. It's so intuitive to use. I love that there's actual buttons. You're not relying purely on a touchscreen. Okay, the graphics are a little bit old, but that's just being super picky. I think this is awesome, especially the volume knob here. It just makes sense. Now, while we're on the topic of things that maybe don't attract as much attention as their more celebrated siblings, I'm exactly 3 centimeters shorter than Liam Hemsworth. This is in my driving position, and honestly, it's not fantastic. My legs are kind of cramped up against the back of the seat, so I've got to do the full OnlyFans style leg spread with the headrest up. Oh, bloody hell, that's... Just hang on. There we go. That's a bit more comfortable. The seats themselves are really comfy and you kind of sink into it nicely, so it does become a little bit supportive. Also, like the front, the leather in this one, really, really nice. Still super soft and supple. It's okay. Everything feels, again, sort of quality. I just wish I had more leg and foot room, really. Also, I wouldn't want to sit in the middle if you've got legs because that transmission tunnel is massive and there's no room for your feet. But as far as features and practicality for this class of car, honestly pretty good. You've got a power outlet there, you've got air vents there, you've got map nets on the back, you've got door bins, but there's no chance of you actually getting to them if you've got legs. Plus, there's no pull-down armrest, so there's nowhere for cup holders. That's pretty disappointing. Am I missing something? There's no cup holders under here. There's a little spot for safety gear in there, but no cup holders. Oh, also, there have been a few complaints about the seats rattling. Chances are it's just the actual seat rattling on the latch. Really easy to fix. Jump on the owners groups and the forums, loads of tutorials. Now, as far as practicality in the boot goes, it's not too bad. A BMW M140i beats this for rear space when the rear seats are up, but with the seats down, the S3 trumps the BMW. However, neither of these cars can come anywhere close to Honda Civic Type R in terms of overall rear practicality, although it is technically more of a liftback than a hatchback. Now, while we're showing you some figures on screen, here's another one. Yeah, I know. It turns out that about 75% of people that watch ReDriven regularly haven't hit that subscribe button, but we want your help to change this because if you hit that subscribe button, it allows us to make more free content for you. So in a weird kind of way, you're doing yourself a favor. But if subscribing still isn't enough for you, why not join our membership program for even more perks? Plus, if you're in the market for an S3 and you love all the common issues written out so they're super easy to refer to, hit the link below and go to redriven.com to check out the free S3 cheat sheet. We've listed everything there. It's an absolute must read if you're buying one of these. Okay, but what about the driving experience? Are there any negatives that we need to know about here? Unfortunately, yeah. Firstly, S3s that have got a copious amount of kilometers on them, you can expect that the suspension bushes might be on the way out. Basically, feel for the car being wobbly or if there's any clunking or weird noises underneath. You've got to remember, these are a pretty serious performance car, and to be at their best, things like suspension bushes need to also be at their best. Get that sorted. Also on the suspension, the mag ride, we alluded to it before. Plenty of owners have criticised this suspension, either saying in comfort mode it's just too bouncy, or and then in dynamic mode it's just too stiff and crashy. In this car, I don't know, I feel like all the settings feel as they should. But you know what? Maybe just keep it in auto mode and it should be fine. Or you could do what plenty of other owners recommend and just ditch the standard suspension and fit some really high quality aftermarket struts. Now, next up, there are loads of complaints about the DSG transmissions just being really clunky at around town speeds. More recent updates have smoothed a lot of this out, but this is just a DSG thing. Most of them do that. You kind of got to get used to it. Or you could stand out from the crowd and buy a manual instead. And then there's the steering. And if you've watched any of our other videos, you're probably going to expect me to say that there is no steering feel in an Audi. It just feels dead inside. And you know what? If this was wearing the standard tires, yeah, you'd be right. But Toby has done what plenty of owners recommend and fitted a set of Michelin Pilot Sports, and my God, they have made a huge difference. The steering feel still isn't up there with, you know, a Honda Civic Type R or a Hyundai i30N, but it is a dramatic improvement over the standard tyres, or even plenty of other tyres. Michelin Pilot Sports, the owners are right, these are awesome. But look, aside from those complaints, which let's be honest, aren't really a big deal because they're so easily fixed, What a car these can be, honestly. It's so impressive. Look, I've been lucky enough to have loads of seat time in a bunch of different S3s, especially this one. I've had hours with this one. And I'm always just completely blown away how a car can be so incredibly civilized and easy to live with 1 minute, and then it's seemingly attempting to rip your face off the next. Plus, if for whatever reason the standard amount of power isn't enough for you, as we all know, these engines are hugely tunable. They can create massive horsepower. This one has a very mild tune on it, and let me tell you, I know from experience, it is unbelievably rapid. The way it gets from A to B is devastating. But I personally have a problem with the Audi S3 in general, and it's an issue that I have with the Volkswagen Golf R as well. When you're not attempting to rearrange your internal organs through mind-bending acceleration and just the most incredible physics-bending abilities through the corners, they just kind of feel like another Volkswagen Golf, or in this case, an Audi A3 to drive. It's very pleasant, but I just kind of wish it just felt more special more of the time. And look, maybe you're the sort of person that wants that kind of Jekyll and Hyde personality from a car. Personally, I just want to feel that my money has gone towards something special all of the time. Plus, let's be honest, Audi doesn't have the most stellar reputation when it comes to mechanical reliability. Should we be concerned with that? Well, I unfortunately can't tell you about that because I'm not a qualified mechanic. You know who is? It's Jim.
Now, as Adam alluded to, these engines are actually capable of making really good horsepower, and they are a very popular modding platform. And if we're going to talk about the problems you might see on a modified engine, that's basically how long is a piece of string scenario. So today we're just going to talk about the unmodified daily drivers and the things we see common in the workshop. First of all, look at this abomination of a thing, would you? This is a water pump. This is by far the most common problem we see. It's bloody expensive to buy, and it's a pain in the ass to change. It takes a few hours. It can cost a fortune. And a pro tip here is if you're looking to get one, don't get hung up on the genuine Audi or Volkswagen ones. The aftermarket ones are often actually better and last longer. And the cost of changing one of these, it can vary depending on exactly which model you have, but anywhere from $1,500 is, typically what you might pay. Another problem we're starting to see a lot of is the cam adjuster magnets. They're basically the solenoids that actuate the spool valves for the variable valve timing. The solenoids are relatively easy to change, but to get the spool valves out, you actually need a special tool, so that can be a pain. The PCV valve on these is a common failure point. They are actually quite easy to change on these. They're just on top of the valve cover. When they leak, sometimes you get a lean air-fuel ratio. Sometimes you'll get a fault code telling you that. And sometimes you can hear a whistling sound. If you hear a whistling sound and you pull the dipstick out, and the whistling stops, you know that your PCV valve is cooked. Now, a dodgy PCV valve on these can make oil leaks way worse. The oil leaks on these are from the cam adjuster magnets, which I just talked about, from the timing cover, and from the sump as well, and the low oil level sensor, and pretty much everywhere, basically. The rear main oil seal too, they leak everywhere. The turbos on these, they're fairly reliable if the car's been well serviced. They can have some wastegate actuator issues, and the wastegate actuator rod can rattle as well. Careful if you're looking for an oil leak and you think it's coming from the turbo. Often it isn't. Often it's coming from the valve cover or the PCV valve, which is directly above that. So just be careful you don't rush in and pull your turbo off unnecessarily. Like the water pump on these, the engine bay, especially the cooling system, has a lot of feeble plastic components. Anything basically made of plastic, you're going to have to replace at some point. The inlet manifolds on these, they're plastic, and the swirl flaps inside them are plastic. And a common problem with those manifolds is the actuator for those swirl flaps. If that fails, you've got to replace the whole manifold. And if the actuator fails, you will get a fault code telling you so. And chances are at some point you'll have that manifold off to do the water pump, so hey, you might as well just put a new manifold on it anyway. Timing chain complications are way less common on third gen EA 888 engines, although not unheard of. If you have an engine with very high mileage or a very poor service history, you might have some timing chain complications. Oil consumption, yes, it is still an issue with this generation, although moderate usually, but something you really need to check between services and probably top it up. I just want to loop back to that sump for a second. Yes, they do leak, and by the way, they are made of plastic. A really common problem with these is because they're plastic and they're very low and very vulnerable, they often get hit by debris on the road, and that can just basically break them open. If you're driving one and you hear a thump under your car and you think you've hit something, it is highly advisable you stop and check there's not oil pissing out from underneath it, because by the time you get a warning light or any other clue that there's something wrong, the engine's usually already dead. So if you hit something, check your sump. And if the sump is broken or cracked, you can put another replacement plastic one on. You can put the previous generation steel ones on there, or you can put there's cast aluminium ones you can put on there too. There's plenty of options that are better than the factory plastic one. The DSG on these has always copped a lot of criticism for being unreliable. The later generation ones actually aren't too bad if they've been well serviced. They can have some DSG position sensor issues. They can also have mechatronics complications, although not as common as the previous generations. It's also worth checking that all the factory software updates are all done as well, because that can make a difference to the way the DSG works. It's a similar story with the Haldex coupling. That's basically the drive coupling on the rear diff. Very rarely a problem if well serviced. Just make sure that occasionally that it is actually serviced. It's very often overlooked on the service schedule. Yeah, just insist that it gets done. I should also emphasize this is a performance car, but the good thing here, it doesn't really cost any more to service and maintain these than an ordinary Golf, really. Pretty good in that way. I just loop back to the performance and modification thing for a second. Yeah, they're capable of making huge horsepower, and some say they are reliable, but the bottom line here is the more power you make, the less reliable they become. You know, a light tune is probably totally fine, but remember, the more you lean on it, the more likely it is to break. Overall, if you're looking at one, just try to get one with the lowest possible mileage you can, and also make sure it's got an absolutely perfect and well-documented service history. Then you should be okay.
But the big question still remains, do we think you should buy one? Maybe. See, the issue that the S3 might have actually has very little to do with the car or even Audi. It's the fact that so many have been purchased by people that have no intention of keeping the car for the long term. Or maybe they just wanted a fast Audi because that's a cool thing to drive. And they haven't been aware that for an S3 to remain reliable for the long term, they do require fastidious maintenance. An S3 simply does not have the resilience of a Lexus or even a Toyota for that matter. And they do not respond at all well to subpar maintenance or a lack of care and attention. And if the S3 you're looking at could be guilty of those things, do not buy that car. However, find an example that has been owned by an S3 enthusiast and has been meticulously maintained, just like this one. And as long as it passes a pre-purchase inspection with flying colors and you're in the financial situation to continue the level of care required, yeah, buy it. I know what you're getting yourself into, but these can be a bloody great car. Interestingly, if you are in the market for an S3 that ticks all of the critical boxes, this actual car might be for sale. If it is, we're going to add all the links down below. Although you could just go and buy one of these instead. But if you already own an S3, can you do us a favor and let us know what your ownership experience has been like down in the comments, because that way anyone researching this has even more information to draw from. Legend. That at least you and your Triton aren't being treated like Okay, but after all of that, the truck's going to ruin the take.